Recently, the atmosphere in the northern domain has undoubtedly become more spirited and intense, a change clearly linked to the appearance of Chen, the mysterious mansion master, and his ambitious declaration that he hopes Mu Manor can become one of the overlords of the northern region. As for Chen's ambition, it has stirred up quite a stir throughout the northern domain, sparking numerous heated debates, which is why the region is buzzing with activity. The northern domain, a place of great importance. Inside a tavern within the city, the fiery atmosphere sweeping across the northern domain continues to linger, and here, it is even more intense and direct. The heated topic of discussion throughout the tavern is none other than Mu Manor's attempt to vie for the title of Northern Region Overlord. If you ask me, our mansion master is being a bit too reckless. The northern region is vast, its depths unimaginable. Although Mu Manor dominates the northern domain, in terms of strength, we are at best mid-tier in the northern region. If we really go up against the other three powerhouses, Mu Manor will undoubtedly lose. At that point, when Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Rock Mansion are enraged, our northern domain will probably be drenched in blood. Our mansion master may be young, but he's a man of great talent. Not long ago, when three elders from the Purple Cloud Sect tried to flex their muscle with their great perfection strength, our mansion master easily dealt with them. In my opinion, our mansion master's strength is no weaker than that of Purple Cloud True Monarch, Thunder Sound Venerable, or Golden Rock Emperor. Exactly. With our mansion master's abilities, Mu Manor has no reason to shrink back in the northern domain. And even if war breaks out, so what? I'm just worried I won't have enough merit to earn this year's Celestial River Training Token. That Celestial River Training Token is truly a great prize. It's said to be a relic of the ancient Heavenly Palace, a sacred training ground. And I've heard there's even a mysterious scripture pavilion there. If we're lucky enough to enter, even major divine abilities are within reach. The treasure may be great, but you need the life to enjoy it. Behind the three overlords of the northern region are superpowers from the Great Thousand Worlds. Even if our mansion master wins the overlord position, if he angers these superpowers, the northern domain will still face inevitable disaster. For the sake of his ambition, our mansion master is willing to risk the northern domain. This isn't a good thing. The heated arguments continue throughout the tavern. At a secluded corner of the tavern, Mandala listens calmly to the disputes. Beside her are the Heavenly Vulture Emperor, Lu Tiandao, and others, all of them with furrowed brows. Lord Mandala, I've heard that the entire northern domain is currently embroiled in this heated debate, and it seems to be intensifying. Something feels off, the Heavenly Vulture Emperor whispered. In recent days, this debate has spread like wildfire across every corner of the northern domain. The speed of its spread seems a bit unnatural. Mandala's gaze flickered. Are you saying someone is intentionally stirring the pot? The Heavenly Vulture Emperor nodded slowly. It seems someone can't stand seeing Mu Manor united, and they are trying to sway the hearts of the people in the northern domain through these public debates. It's the handiwork of the Purple Cloud Sect, Mandala said indifferently. She had already sensed something amiss and had sent people to investigate in secret. Recently, many from the Purple Cloud Sect had quietly infiltrated the northern domain, spreading rumors and causing the northern domain to buzz with activity. This tactic, though unable to shake Mu Manor's foundation, was still quite repugnant. Moreover, if Mu Manor truly failed at the Northern Region Assembly, it could very well become a trigger, leading to a sharp decline in Mu Manor's prestige and causing the people of the northern domain to splinter. If that happens, many factions may eye them with greed, as Mu Manor controls the ancient Heavenly Palace, and it has long been coveted by others. Truly shameless, Lu Tiandao muttered angrily. By now, they considered themselves part of Mu Manor, and witnessing the Purple Cloud Sect's vile tactics only fueled their rage. Mandala waved her small hand, her face cold as she said, "You all pass the order, secretly monitor and search every city in the northern domain. Anyone suspected to be from the Purple Cloud Sect, attempting to sway the hearts of the people, capture them immediately. After investigation, deal with them all." She lightly gestured, a chilling aura emanating from her. Since the Purple Cloud Sect wanted to provoke them, Mu Manor would have no mercy. Whoever they sent would meet their end. Lu Tiandao and the others felt a chill run down their spines. It seemed Mandala was ready to strike with thunderous force this time. Since Mu Chen wants to make Mu Manor one of the overlords of the Northern Domain, I will naturally do my utmost to assist him. Although the battles at the peak level will need him to face them, the hidden tricks and schemes will be handled by us. Otherwise, what is the point of having so many people in Mu Manor? Mandala said lightly. Yes. Lu Tiandao and the others all replied in unison. After a moment of contemplation, Lu Tiandao couldn't help but ask, Mandala, do you think the Mansion Master can truly contend with the likes of Purple Cloud True Monarch, Thunder Sound Venerable, and Golden Rock Emperor? Clearly, even someone as experienced as Lu Tiandao had some reservations about the upcoming Northern Domain Assembly and Mu Manor's contest with the three overlord forces. After all, these three figures were on the verge of heavenly supreme strength, and their names had already become legends in every corner of the Northern Domain. While Mu Chen's return was indeed astonishing, there was still a gap in foundation compared to these old, established powers. Mandala glanced at Lu Tiandao upon hearing this. Lu Tiandao awkwardly smiled and said, Mandala, it's not that we don't believe in the Mansion Master, but this matter is too important. The rise or fall of Mu Manor depends on this event. Naturally, we have some concerns. Mandala didn't rebuke him. After all, Mu Chen's decision had been somewhat sudden, and the three overlords' influence in the Northern Domain had remained unshaken. Over the years, many powerful factions had attempted to challenge their positions, but no one had succeeded. Therefore, aside from her, it was likely that no one else in the Northern Domain had absolute confidence in Mu Chen's decision. This time, Mu Chen was undoubtedly gambling. If, at the Northern Domain Assembly, he could indeed lead Mu Manor to break the stranglehold of Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Rock Mansion, then Mu Manor would rise like the wind. Who knows, it might truly become the only overlord in the Northern Domain. In the future, when the time was right and their wings were fully spread, Mu Manor might even eye the Tianluo continent. If successful, Mu Manor could become like the Boundless Fire Domain or the Martial Realm, an influential superpower in the Great Thousand Worlds. Of course, if Mu Chen were stopped by the three overlords at the Northern Domain Assembly and Mu Manor returned defeated, the blow to the morale of Mu Manor would be devastating. At that point, Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Rock Mansion would undoubtedly seize the opportunity to strike, as they too were eyeing the ancient heavenly palace of Mu Manor. In such a situation, Mu Manor could very well face disintegration. Under these dire consequences, it was no surprise that Lu Tiandao and the others were feeling uneasy. However, Mandala didn't offer much reassurance. A faint smile appeared on her delicate face as she said, I don't care how you all feel, but I know one thing for sure. Mu Chen is the one chosen by the Heavenly Emperor. Even figures like the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor recognize him and are willing to form good ties with him. You think your judgment compares to theirs? With that, she said no more, waved her hand, and turned to leave. Lu Tiandao and the others exchanged glances and let out a quiet sigh of relief. The weight in their hearts seemed to have lifted. Indeed, the Heavenly Emperor, Flame Emperor, Martial Ancestor, each of them was a towering figure of the age, and their judgment was of the highest caliber. Since they all supported the Mansion Master, it spoke volumes about the potential he possessed. With a master like that, all they had to do was follow and give their best effort. In the future, they would have no regrets. Time passed in the Northern Domain, and as the Northern Domain Assembly drew closer, the atmosphere in the Northern Domain grew increasingly heated. However, due to Mandala's subtle actions, the morale of Mu Manor continued to rise. The rumors trying to undermine Mu Manor were quietly disappearing. But this was only the case in the Northern Domain. Across the vast expanse of the Northern Domain, other factions that had caught wind of the events were watching coldly, many of them with pity and mockery. After all, the Northern Domain had never been impressive in the past. It was chaotic, fragmented, a mess. Now, just after finally unifying, it was facing a rash Mansion Master who dared to challenge the dominance of Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Rock Emperor. In the past, factions with such ambitions had usually faded away with time. So, from the perspective of other factions in the Northern Domain, Mu Manor was likely to become nothing more than a laughingstock at the Northern Domain Assembly. Amidst all the commotion and turmoil, the time for the Northern Domain Assembly finally approached. Northern Wilderness, Mu Manor. The entire Mu Manor headquarters appeared especially vibrant today, as countless powerful figures from the Northern Wilderness gathered in full force. Their overwhelming presence showcased the youthful vigor of Mu Manor, a rising force in the region. Outside a grand hall, Mandala gazed at the vast spiritual energy fluctuations across the plaza, which were as boundless as the sea. She then turned towards the direction of the ancient heavenly palace, a small furrow forming on her brow. Since Chen entered the scripture pavilion, he had yet to make an appearance. But today was the day of the Northern Domain Assembly, and with so many powerful figures from Mu Manor now gathered, if Chen did not show up, the situation would be truly troublesome. The morale and unity built over the past month could collapse in an instant. This guy, Mandala clenched her small hand tightly, her silver teeth gritting involuntarily. However, she couldn't show any worry at this moment. She simply looked up at the sky, but as the sun climbed higher, the many powerful figures from Mu Manor began to murmur. Clearly, they had noticed that Chen had still not shown up. Seeing this unrest, Mandala let out a helpless sigh. Just as she was about to speak to comfort them, a ripple in the space beside her signaled the arrival of a tall, young figure. He stepped through the air and appeared under the gaze of countless intense eyes. "Greetings, Mansion Master." As the figure appeared, the powerful figures from Mu Manor erupted in a thunderous greeting. Chen looked at the large army of strong figures and nodded slightly. He smiled at Mandala beside him, then raised his hand and gave a decisive wave. His clear voice rang out across the heavens and earth. "Let's go." The Northern Domain was vast, but it was divided between the three overlords: Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Eagle Mansion. Nearly 80% of the domain belonged to these three factions. As for the Northern Wilderness, it was located in the remaining 20% of the Northern Domain. Of course, the Northern Wilderness had managed to remain untouched for so long largely because of its remote location. Its resources were considered mediocre in the Northern Domain, making it unappealing to the three overlords. However, that was no longer the case. With Mu Manor now unifying the Northern Wilderness, it was clear that peace would not last long. Moreover, Mu Manor had seized control of the ancient heavenly palace, a piece of news that, though initially hidden, soon spread throughout the Northern Wilderness. As the news reached more and more people, it inevitably reached the ears of the three overlords: Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Eagle Mansion. The ancient heavenly palace was once the domain of the rulers of the Tianluo continent, and its caves were rare places of cultivation. Such places, if obtained, would greatly enhance any faction's strength. In just a little over a year, Mu Manor's power had skyrocketed, attracting many powerful figures. The key reason behind this was the presence of the ancient heavenly palace. Naturally, the three overlords had long coveted it, constantly seeking opportunities to absorb Mu Manor and seize the ancient heavenly palace. Southwest of the Northern Domain, the Northern Wilderness. This region had a considerable reputation across the Northern Domain as it lay at the crossroads of the three overlords' territories: Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Eagle Mansion. Due to its terrain, every Northern Domain assembly was held here. This time was when the Northern Wilderness saw the highest concentration of people, as nearly 80% of the forces from the Northern Domain gathered in this area with their powerful followers. The vast and overwhelming spiritual energy filled the sky, glowing in myriad colors. The sheer magnitude of these spiritual fluctuations was enough to leave anyone new to the area in awe. Among them was Chen. Outside the Northern Wilderness, Chen gazed across the vast plains. Through his senses, countless spiritual energy waves flickered like stars in the sky, and for a moment, even he couldn't fully perceive them all. "Looks like nearly 70 or 80% of the Northern Domain's powerhouses have arrived," Chen remarked in awe. The Northern Domain Assembly is a major event concerning the battle for supremacy. Almost every faction in the Northern Domain will be here, Mandala said beside him. Chen nodded slightly. He could sense that countless beams of light and shadow were continuously converging from all directions, eventually landing on this vast plain. Did you see the insignias on those people's arms? Mandala suddenly spoke up. Mu Chen's gaze sharpened, then he nodded. He had noticed that almost every force arriving at the northern wilderness had a unique armband on their arms. The purple band signifies they are from the Purple Cloud sect, the gray band is from Thundersound Mountain, and the gold band represents Golden Eagle Mansion. Only those bearing the insignias of the three great overlord forces are allowed to enter the northern wilderness. If any other force dares to set foot here, it means they intend to challenge the three overlords. At that point, we may find ourselves in a perilous situation, Mandala said slowly. Oh, are they going to stop us? Mu Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. According to the rules of the Northern Domain, any newly established force that wishes to prove their strength to compete with the three overlords must take one path. Enter from the outer edge of the northern wilderness and fight their way through. If they manage to reach the depths of the northern wilderness, the battlefield where the three overlords vie for power, only then do they qualify to compete with them. In the past, two forces with formidable power attempted to establish themselves as the new overlords of the Northern Domain. They entered the northern wilderness, but never returned, and their forces vanished without a trace. Mu Chen listened and said, "Sounds a bit harsh. This world ultimately respects strength. If you don't have enough power but still covet the position of an overlord, you'd better be prepared to be completely devoured and left with nothing," Mandala said, staring at Mu Chen. "So are you ready? If we fail, those two forces are our warning." Mu Chen smiled, turning around to face the dozens of figures behind him. The ones who had followed him here were all the most elite warriors of Mu Manor, each of them having reached the level of Earth Supreme. At this moment, all the warriors of Mu Manor were looking at him with burning eyes. There was no trace of fear in their eyes, only fervor. "If you believe I can lead you all out, then follow me," Mu Chen said with a smile. He didn't say any motivational words, but simply waved his hand, then turned and flew low toward the northern wilderness. Ling Shi, Long Xiang, and Zhang Long immediately followed without hesitation. The other warriors of Mu Manor looked at the countless strong forces gathering in the northern wilderness. Their group seemed incredibly small compared to the sheer numbers. Yet, when they looked at the young figure ahead, something in their hearts surged with boundless confidence. Without any further hesitation, they burst forward, transforming into dozens of streaks of light. Mandala watched this scene, a faint smile appearing on her exquisite face. It seemed Mu Chen had begun to become the spiritual pillar of Mu Manor. If they could win this battle, Mu Chen's position as mansion master would become truly unshakable. She smiled and then stepped forward, appearing behind Mu Chen. Whoosh, whoosh. The dozens of streaks of light, formed by the warriors of Mu Manor, flew low into the northern wilderness. Just as they entered, sharp gazes from all directions locked onto them. So it's Mu Manor from the Northern Domain. How bold. A group of mere few dares to enter the northern wilderness. I bet they won't even get halfway before they're all wiped out. That one in the front must be the mansion master of Mu Manor, right? He's young. No wonder he's so arrogant. Too bad. After today, he will just be another skeleton in the northern wilderness. With the arrival of Mu Manor's warriors, whispers and murmurs erupted across the plains. The gazes were filled with sympathy and mockery, clearly not taking Mu Manor seriously. After all, this wasn't the first time such a thing had happened. Those who dared challenge the authority of the three overlords always ended up as fertilizer for the northern wilderness. Moving forward amidst such condescending gazes took immense courage. Many warriors of Mu Manor felt uneasy under the scrutiny, but they tightly followed the steady, unhurried figure ahead. Mu Chen stood at the forefront of the group, his expression calm and indifferent, as if he were a deep pool, still and unaffected. The sounds echoing around him seemed to have no impact on him whatsoever. His gaze remained fixed on the farthest reaches of the northern wilderness. In the vast expanse of the world, it was only there that he faintly sensed three obscure, yet powerful waves of spiritual energy, flickering in and out of existence. These waves of spiritual energy were far beyond the strength of a peak Earth Supreme. Stop right there. However, just as Mu Chen's eyes lingered on the distance, a sharp voice suddenly rang out ahead. In the next moment, dozens of figures soared into the sky, blocking their path. The figures were all radiating intense spiritual energy. Purple ribbons adorned their arms, indicating that they were all from various factions under the banner of the Purple Cloud sect. Nearly half of them had reached the Upper Earth Supreme level, and the two leading figures were both at the Great Perfection stage. Clearly, the Purple Cloud sect harbored deep hatred for the Mu Manor. They had gathered a group of powerful individuals loyal to the sect, aiming to crush the Mu Manor. Yet, despite the menacing figures before him, Mu Chen's expression remained unchanged, and his speed did not falter. A bunch of insignificant dogs dare to block our young master's path? Get out of the way. Long Xiang shouted coldly. His body shot forward like lightning, radiating an indescribable and terrifying force as he dove into the group. His fists tore through the air, and no one could stop him. Bull! The two Earth's supreme great perfections roared in anger, moving to intercept Long Xiang. Boom! But just as they moved, a vast wave of spiritual energy suddenly swept through the sky. A massive spiritual array descended from the heavens, enveloping the two of them in an instant. The spiritual energy surged like a tide, turning into a storm that battered the two great perfections, suppressing them to the point where they couldn't move. Boom, boom, boom. In just a few breaths, the group of blocking Purple Cloud sect experts was thoroughly defeated. Every one of them was left battered and broken beneath Long Xiang's iron fists. Mu Chen didn't even spare them a glance, continuing his walk with his hands clasped behind his back, amidst the astonished gazes of onlookers. His gaze was still fixated on the depths of the northern wilderness. Although the northern wilderness had gathered many strong experts under the three overlord forces, they were still far from enough to stop him, unless the three overlords stationed deep within personally intervened. But regardless of the outcome, today, he would make the Mu Manor the overlord of the northern domain, whether it was for the loyal experts following him or the vast resources needed for his future cultivation. The northern domain overlord, Mu Chen would claim it. Bang! In the increasingly chaotic northern wilderness, a violent wave of spiritual energy shot into the sky. In the next instant, over a dozen figures were sent flying from the air, blood spraying everywhere as they crashed to the ground. That's the eighth wave. Mu Chen glanced indifferently at the miserable figures. Since their arrival in the northern wilderness, this was already the eighth wave of forces sent to stop them. These forces were no weaklings. Each wave had contained Earth's supreme great perfections. Yet, no matter how they charged, they could never break through the defense formed by Long Xiang, Mandala, Ling Shi, and Jiang Long. As for the other Mu Manor experts, aside from Lu Tiandao and the other Upper Earth Supremes, their roles here were mostly to bolster the momentum. They had little real impact at this moment. Mu Chen had not even lifted a finger yet. Clearly, these interruptions were still not enough to force the Manor Master himself into action. Such a bunch of flies. Mandala said coldly, clearly growing impatient with the repeated obstructions. This is just a war of attrition, Ling Shi murmured. They plan to wear us down with wave after wave, and once we show signs of fatigue, the various lurking factions will rush in to strike. Let them come, and let's see who will get the better of us. Long Xiang grinned maliciously. Spiritual light surged around him, with dragon-like images occasionally appearing, emanating a terrifying aura that shook the space around them. Jiang Long crossed his arms, his gaze arrogant and dismissive, clearly looking down on these powerful figures from all sides. After all, the opponents he had faced in the past were all immortal, grade heavenly supremes. Although that was partly due to the mystic dragon army's overwhelming strength, his experience had certainly broadened his horizons. Now, we should be deep enough into the northern wilderness. Those guys are starting to get scared, Mu Chen said with a faint smile. He could sense that the frequency of their obstruction had begun to decrease. After failing in the previous 8 waves, it was clear that their momentum had weakened. Let's go, straight to the depths. Mu Chen smiled, hands behind his back, walking with a calm demeanor, as if the countless eyes around them were non-existent. However, it was precisely because of Mu Chen's nonchalance that the various forces in the northern wilderness began to feel a sense of fear. They no longer dared to act as recklessly as before. After several confrontations, They could already tell that while Mu Manor's overall strength might not be extraordinary, their top-tier experts were incredibly formidable. There were only 4 perfect Earth Supremes, but each of them was no ordinary figure. Even among the great perfections, they were considered exceptional. From their calculations, it would take at least 8 great perfection experts working together to stop these 4 formidable figures. And this was not even counting the enigmatic Lord of Mu Manor. Though Mu Chen appeared to be just a half-step great perfection on the surface, the people present were no fools. Recent reports had told of this mysterious young lord effortlessly transforming 3 elders from the Purple Cloud sect, all of whom were Earth Supremes, into lower Earth Supremes. Such methods were truly baffling. This Mu Manor really has some serious power. No wonder they dare to vie for the Northern Domain's position of overlord. They do have some strength, but their biggest obstacle isn't these guys. It's the 3 overlords currently in the deep depths of the Northern Wilderness. Yes, those 3 are close to the Heavenly Supreme level, their strength far surpassing any Earth Supremes. To them, this battle is probably just an entertaining show. Unfortunately, it seems that Mu Manor will ultimately fail. In the Northern Wilderness, many forces watched as the Mu Manor experts pushed forward, quietly conversing among themselves. Even though Mu Manor had blocked 8 waves of obstructions, it was clear that not many people were optimistic about them. The 3 overlord factions had such deep roots in the Northern Domain that they were almost untouchable. Whoosh! The Mu Manor's forces flew over the Northern Wilderness at low altitude. Their speed wasn't fast, but wherever they passed, the forces obstructing their path parted like waves. The earlier display of Mu Manor's strength made them realize the gap between themselves and the Mu Manor. If they recklessly charged forward, they would likely end up like the unlucky ones before them. Without any further hindrance, the Mu Manor forces finally reached the deepest part of the Northern Wilderness. Once in this area, Mu Chen could sense that while the number of forces here was fewer, their power had become significantly stronger. Clearly, the forces able to occupy positions here were well known in the Northern Domain, and naturally, they were stronger. However, Mu Chen's expression didn't change, even in the face of this stronger force lineup. He walked steadily, leading the group like a sharp blade, straight into the deepest part of the Northern Wilderness. Surprisingly, the forces here did not make a move to block them. Instead, they let them pass. Mandala, watching this scene, was not particularly pleased. Her slender brows furrowed slightly, as she could sense that the forces around them were looking at them with mocking gazes. It was as if there was a good show waiting for them ahead. Mandala glanced at Mu Chen, but he remained indifferent, walking with his hands behind his back. She didn't say anything more and followed closely behind. After walking for a while, the surrounding powerful figures stepped back, revealing an open area. There, 9 figures stood with their hands behind their backs, their cold gazes fixed on them. Surrounding these 9 figures was an overwhelming aura of spiritual power, shaking the space around them. These 9 were all Earth Supremes at the peak of great perfection, and they were among the strongest within the great perfection realm. Such a lineup was truly impressive and left a significant impact. Mandala, Ling Shi, Long Xiang, and Zhang Long stared at the 9 figures ahead, their expressions gradually becoming solemn as they felt a mounting pressure from the sight of the figures. They are the powerhouses from the Purple Cloud sect, Thundersound Mountain, and Golden Eagle Mansion. It seems they've finally decided to join forces to stop us here, Mandala said in a low voice. Previously, those who had attacked were merely affiliated forces under the 3 great overlords, but now, the true powerhouses from these factions had appeared. Mu Chen's gaze swept over the group, and indeed, among the 9, 3 wore purple bands, 3 wore gray bands, and 3 wore golden bands, clearly indicating their affiliations with the 3 great overlord forces. These people are the most powerful figures in the Purple Cloud sect, Thundersound Mountain, and Golden Eagle Mansion, aside from their respective leaders, Mandala said with a serious expression. Mu Chen nodded slightly, his face unchanged. A mere Mu Manor dares to try and dominate the Northern Domain? They are seeking their own destruction. As Mu Chen and the others stepped into the area, the 9 top-tier Great Perfection powerhouses turned their eyes toward them, their voices cold as they shouted. Leave the Northern Wilderness immediately, and hand over the ancient heavenly palace. Otherwise, by tomorrow, we will have Mu Manor erased from the northern domain. Their words thundered across the land, drawing the attention of countless forces. As they saw the 9 figures blocking their path, many of the onlookers couldn't help but click their tongues in awe. These 9 were nearly the strongest in the entire northern domain, second only to the 3 overlords. It seemed that Mu Manor's journey was about to end here. Big words. Long Xiang sneered, his face twisted into a fierce grin as the sound of dragons and elephants echoed around him. His eyes glowed with murderous intent. Ling Shi's jade-like hands flickered with numerous spirit seals, while Mandala clenched her fist, summoning a black-thorned whip. Jiang Long's body radiated powerful spiritual energy. They were clearly preparing for a fierce battle. However, just as they were about to act, Mu Chen raised his hand lightly and said, "This time, let me handle it." The 9 before them were all formidable, on par with Mandala and the others, and with their advantage in numbers, it would be difficult for Mandala's group to gain any significant advantage. Moreover, the repeated blockades they had faced so far had stirred Mu Chen's killing intent. The 3 great overlord factions had clearly decided to eliminate Mu Manor, so there was no need for him to hold back any longer. Mu Chen's expression remained calm as he slowly stepped forward, his eyes locked on the 9 figures, each radiating vast waves of spiritual power. Arrogant. The 9 top-tier great perfection cultivators saw Mu Chen approach alone and felt a chill in their eyes. They sneered coldly. "If you don't leave within 3 breaths, the northern wilderness will be your burial ground." Mu Chen acted as though he had not heard them and continued walking forward. "You're courting death." The 9 top-tier great perfection cultivators were enraged to see Mu Chen ignore them completely. "Since you want to die, we will grant your wish." 2 of the top-tier great perfection cultivators could no longer restrain their anger. Laughing maniacally, they leapt forward, their bodies moving like shadows, carrying immense spiritual energy as they rushed toward Mu Chen. Boom! 2 immense spiritual energy fists, like solid matter, shot out from their hands, crashing into Mu Chen's body. The ground shook and space twisted, yet Mu Chen's figure remained still. Spiritual light flickered around him, and the fierce attacks from the 2 top-tier great perfection cultivators failed to leave a mark on him. The 2 cultivators' faces changed drastically. In that moment, Mu Chen's figure suddenly appeared before them. His dark pupils gleamed as the sacred floating pagoda burst into brilliant light. With a cold expression, he extended his hand and gently patted. A palm print, as if cutting through space itself, softly landed on the head of one top-tier great perfection, while his other hand lightly struck the chest of the other. The palm winds were as gentle as a breeze. Mu Chen's figure passed through the 2 top-tier great perfection cultivators, lightly tapping them as he went by. Boom! Boom! Behind him, the 2 cultivators exploded with a resounding crash. One's head shattered like a watermelon, blood and brain matter splattering, while the other's chest caved in, blood and flesh bursting out from his back. Silence. The once lively northern wilderness suddenly fell into an eerie silence. The eyes of the countless powerful figures around them widened in shock, their faces filled with intense horror. No one had expected that the 2 top-tier great perfection experts would be slain by Mu Chen with a single strike, without even lasting a full round. They were cut down swiftly and decisively. Moreover, the resolute and ruthless way in which Mu Chen acted sent a chilling wave through their hearts. Countless gazes were now fixed in horror on Mu Chen, whose expression remained calm, as if he had merely swatted 2 insignificant flies. Only now did they realize that this seemingly young man was far deeper and more unfathomable than they had imagined. His strength had already far surpassed the level of great perfection. Amid the shocked gazes, Mu Chen raised his black eyes and scanned the 7 top-tier great perfection experts, his expression cold and emotionless. His voice, carrying a trace of chilling coldness, echoed throughout the area. "All of you, come at me together." A cold wind swept through the northern wilderness, causing all the powerful figures to shiver uncontrollably. However, when their eyes fell upon the young figure in the distance, that coldness reached its peak, and they couldn't help but tremble. Behind him, the 2 corpses grew steadily colder. Just moments ago, Those bodies belonged to two of the highest-ranking experts among the top-tier great perfections. Yet such powerful beings, in the face of this young man's calm demeanor, had failed to last even a single round before losing all vitality. They hadn't even had time to flee. The countless eyes in the sky stared at Mu Chen's figure, their faces filled with profound shock. Although they had heard rumors about the strength of Mu Chen, the Lord of Mu Manor, it was only when they witnessed it firsthand that they understood what extraordinary truly meant. No wonder Mu Manor dares to compete for supremacy in the northern domain. With such power, it might even rival the three overlord forces, one expert murmured, his face solemn. It seemed certain that today, a world-shattering battle was about to break out on the northern wilderness. Amid the many astonished gazes, Mu Chen simply clapped his hands, as if brushing away non-existent bloodstains. He then looked up at the 7 Earth Supremes, whose faces were filled with shock, and spoke in a calm voice. "Are you not going to come together?" With his breakthrough to the half-step Great Perfection, the once formidable Great Perfection experts now appeared fragile to him. In his perception, even without using any divine abilities, just activating the sacred floating pagoda would allow him to overpower these Earth Supremes with his spiritual energy. Moreover, the spiritual energy transformed by the sacred floating pagoda possessed formidable sealing power. Against such power, the Earth Supremes were as weak as chickens and dogs in his eyes. You dare kill them?" The 7 Earth Supremes finally snapped out of their shock and cried out in anger. Clearly, they hadn't anticipated the decisive and ruthless nature of Mu Chen's attack. From the very start, it had been a killing strike. No hesitation, no mercy. And those two who had died were among the highest-ranking individuals in the three overlord forces, second only to their leaders. Normally, they held great power and prestige across the northern domain. Yet in the blink of an eye, they were slaughtered? Mu Chen smiled slightly and replied, "Otherwise, do you think Mu Manor gathered its forces and came here just to put on a show? And this is just the beginning." Looking at the smile on Mu Chen's face, the 7 Earth Supremes suddenly felt a bone-chilling cold, as though they were being watched by a fierce beast. It made them tremble with fear. Swish! However, Mu Chen did not waste any more words with them. His figure disappeared once again, and it seemed as though a blurry light passed through the space, almost like a shadow. "Attack together!" The 7 Earth Supremes shouted in horror. Now fully aware of Mu Chen's terrifying power, they no longer held their previous arrogant attitude. They understood that only by working together could they possibly stand a chance against this god of death. Boom! Boom! Without hesitation, the 7 immediately activated their supreme Dharmakayas, and 7 massive figures appeared. The immense spiritual energy surged through the air like a storm. Swish! Mu Chen's figure did not pause in the slightest. He directly appeared before the supreme Dharmakaya, his expression indifferent. With a single strike of his palm, he struck the chest of the massive form. As the palm imprint landed, a burst of crystal light erupted, and the towering supreme Dharmakaya froze in place. The vast and powerful spiritual energy within it rapidly dimmed at an astonishing speed. Boom! The colossal supreme Dharmakaya instantly collapsed, its spiritual energy completely sealed, unable to sustain its form. At the moment the supreme Dharmakaya collapsed, a disheveled figure violently retreated from the chaotic sea of spiritual light. His face was filled with disbelief and terror. He never expected that after activating the supreme Dharmakaya, he would still be so utterly helpless before Mu Chen's hands. The bizarre crystal spiritual energy was so domineering that it shattered the supreme Dharmakaya from its very core as soon as it made contact, sealing all the spiritual energy within. However, while his retreat was rapid, Mu Chen's figure was even faster. Before the other peak great perfections could react, he appeared before the retreating figure, delivering a simple punch that landed squarely on the chest. Boom! The punch radiated crystal light like a torrent, and as the light made contact with the body of the great perfection expert, it seeped through every pore, quickly dimming the vast sea of spiritual energy within. Explode! Mu Chen's expression remained indifferent as he spoke softly. The crystal light exploded within the great perfection's body like thousands of sharp needles, tearing it apart. His body burst open at that moment. The crystal light flickered across every piece of flesh, sealing the spiritual energy within. In such a situation, no matter how resilient the great perfection expert's vitality was, once they lost their spiritual energy, they became as fragile as an ordinary person. Another great perfection fell. Yet Mu Chen did not even glance at the fallen figure. With a flash of his body, he dodged several spiritual energy lashes that came at him and dashed toward another supreme Dharmakaya like a ghost. Boom, boom, boom. The violent spiritual energy rampaged across the heavens and earth as 6 massive figures unleashed terrifying waves of spiritual power. Amid their attacks, a small figure flickered unpredictably. Yet it was this small figure that, whenever it passed, caused a giant shadow to retreat in disarray. And once Mu Chen seized the opportunity, his crystal spiritual energy would seep in, causing the supreme Dharmakaya to shatter, and the figure inside would be instantly crushed into countless crystal fragments. The booming sounds of spiritual energy reverberated through the skies, and the surrounding forces fell into complete silence. From time to time, someone could be heard swallowing nervously. Though it seemed like the remaining peak great perfections were bombarding Mu Chen's figure with relentless strikes, it was obvious to all that their rhythm had completely fallen apart. Every attack they made was filled with boundless fear. They knew that as long as the small figure seized a tiny opening, their fate would be the same as their fallen companions. Despite their fear, minutes later, they suddenly realized that their companions had become fewer. The original 7 had somehow dwindled to 4. This meant that, from the start of the battle, 3 had already fallen. And yet their opponent had not even activated the Supreme Dharmakaya. At that moment, the remaining 4 peak great perfections were overwhelmed with shock and terror. They finally understood the true horror of the opponent they were facing. The difference between them was not on the same level at all. Run! With all battle intent gone, the 4 peak great perfections simultaneously shot back, knowing that if they continued, they would all perish here. Only now do you think of running? I think it's a little too late. Mu Chen looked at the 4 giant figures retreating, his lips curling into a cold smile. There was no warmth in his expression. He knew that in order for Mu Manor to rise to the top and claim dominance in the northern domain, it had to show absolute power. And now, these peak great perfections who had come to him willingly were the perfect targets. In an instant, his figure flashed, like a ghost, as he pursued the 4 retreating figures. His palm glowed with crystal light, gathering into a brilliant sphere, radiating boundless power. Feeling the terrifying waves of the crystal light behind them, the 4 great perfections turned pale. They could no longer care about anything else, and they screamed, "Sect Master, save us!" Their voices, enveloped in spiritual energy, echoed through the heavens and earth. They hadn't intended to ask for help, as doing so would utterly tarnish their reputation, but now, if they didn't, they would likely perish here. Mu Chen heard their cries for help and gave a cold smile, his speed suddenly increasing. The crystal sun in his hand shot forward, directly slamming into the 4 massive figures. Impudence. Just as the crystal sun was about to engulf the 4 figures, 3 deep, thunderous shouts reverberated through the heavens and earth. Simultaneously, 3 streaks of spiritual light shot through space from the sky, carrying an overwhelming pressure as they forcefully struck the crystal sun. Boom. Faced with these 3 terrifying attacks, the crystal sun shattered almost instantly. However, seeing the shattered crystal sun, Mu Chen's lips curled into a cold smirk. He flicked his finger. Whoosh. The shattered crystal sun suddenly split into 4 beams of crystal light, striking at sharp angles, bypassing the 3 streaks of spiritual light, and hitting the bodies of the 4 Earth Supreme Great Perfections, who had relaxed after being saved. As the crystal light pierced into their bodies, the expressions of relief on their faces froze in place. Then, they were filled with terror as they felt their spiritual energy becoming increasingly obscure and heavy at an alarming rate. Boom. Their supreme Dharmakayas shattered at this moment, and the 4 figures fell to the ground with heavy thuds, spitting out several mouthfuls of blood. Though their lives were spared, they were in a half-dead state. The northern wilderness was silent, as all the factions stared dumbfounded at this scene. No one expected that among the 3 overlord forces, The 9-peak Great Perfections would suffer 5 deaths and 4 injuries in less than the time it took to burn a stick of incense. What's more, at the final moment, the leaders of the Purple Cloud Sect, Thunder Sound Mountain, and Golden Rock Mansion had all intervened, yet still failed to protect the remaining 4. How terrifying must the Lord of Mu Manor be? In the midst of the countless shocked gazes, Mu Chun casually glanced at the heavily injured 4-peak Great Perfections, then looked up toward the depths of the northern wilderness. Calmly, he spoke. Now you regret the losses? This time, several peak Great Perfections had fallen at his hands. Even for the 3 overlord forces, it was a devastating blow. In the depths of the northern wilderness, 3 low, sinister laughs rang out. Yet, everyone could feel the intense killing intent hidden within those laughs. Then, the space around them suddenly distorted. Countless gazes trembled as 3 figures slowly appeared in the sky. These 3 figures stood in the void, emitting an overwhelming pressure from their bodies. The feeling far surpassed even the peak Great Perfection. It already carried the aura of Heavenly Supreme. Mu Chen's gaze fixed upon these 3 figures. In the entire northern domain, who else could possess such strength, other than the Purple Cloud True Monarch, Thunder Sound Venerable, and Golden Rock Emperor? They've finally shown themselves.